Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration and the Minister representing the Minister for Infrastructure, Senator Watt. Minister, what is the number of homes required to house the 549,000 people who arrived on permanent visas in 2023? How many houses?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Roberts, for your question. I know you asked a very similar question last week, and as I pointed out to you last week, it's understood and expected that migration levels in Australia have peaked, that they peaked in 2022-23 and are forecast to drop in half by next year. And that is as a direct result of the changes made by the Albanese government, particularly to tackle the rorts that were occurring in the international student visa system that we inherited from the former government. And the changes that we made late last year are already having a significant and immediate impact, with student visa grants down by more than 35% on last year's level. We are obviously strong supporters of the international education system. It's a very important export industry for Australia. It provides a wide range of benefits to Australia and the countries from which students come from. But the reality is that the system, unfortunately, was being rorted by a number of companies, and that needed to be tackled. It wasn't tackled by the former government, but we are tackling it, and that is having an effect. Now, Senator Roberts, one of the things I also pointed out to you last week was that it's a little bit ironic.
Order.
It's a little bit ironic getting a question from a One Nation senator or a coalition senator or at times a Greens Party senator about what this government is doing about housing numbers. Because, of course, what we've seen over and over again is a coalition between the Liberals, the Nationals, One Nation and the Greens Party teaming up to block action on housing by the Albanese Labor government. We saw it with the Housing Australia Future Fund. And, Senator Roberts, if you were actually sincere in your concern, you would have voted for the Housing Australia Future Fund to build more homes. And if you were sincere in your concern, you'd be voting for the Help to Buy legislation that we're currently trying to get through this parliament, but is being blocked again by the Greens Party, by One Nation and by the Liberals and the Nationals.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, what is the number of schools and hospitals required over the next 5 years to meet the needs of these 549,000 new permanent arrivals last year? How many schools and hospitals? Number, please.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Well, it obviously goes to reason that Australia does need more hospitals and more schools in order to deal with a growing population, whether that be a population growing through natural increase or a population growing through migration. And again, Senator Roberts, we are trying to tackle 10 years of underinvestment by a coalition government in our health system and in our education system. And that's why Minister Jason Clare has only just recently reached agreements with a number of states and territories to increase education funding to the states, and why through National Cabinet in the last few months the Prime Minister has reached agreements with the premiers about increased funding for healthcare across Australia.
Order.
We know that 10 years of coalition government, propped up by One Nation, saw underinvestment in healthcare, underinvestment in hospitals, underinvestment in our schools.
Your seat. Senator Henderson, I called for order, then I called you personally. I would ask you to come to order and stop being disrespectful. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thanks, President. So, Senator Roberts, one of these days you and your colleague Senator Hanson might like to back in a government that's actually delivering on health and education.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, planning for immigration requires planning for the houses, schools, hospitals, transport, food and drinking water that new arrivals need. We won't let you dump 2.3 million long-stay arrivals on the states and then wash your hands of them. This is the second time this sitting I've asked for the numbers, and the second time you have failed to provide them. If you have them, please provide them, and if you don't have them, then clearly this government is not up to the job of running Australia.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Senator Roberts. Well, for Senator Roberts, for starters, I would take issue with your description of migrants as people who are dumped on the community. I think that is an offensive way to describe the contribution of millions of Australians who come from a migrant background. It's not funny, Senator Roberts. It's not funny to talk about dumping people or people being dumped.
I'll come to you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt, when answering the question, please direct your answers to the chair. Senator Roberts.
A point of order. I'm not laughing at immigrants. I am half one. I'm laughing at the minister.
Senator Roberts, that's not a point of order. Minister Watt.
And I think that's especially the case now that Australia, I think the figures are approximately 1 in 2 Australians is either born overseas or their parents are born overseas. And we know that migrants make a great contribution to our country. The reality is, though, that as a result of the increase in migration after the pandemic and as a result of the roots in the international student system that were left behind by the coalition, action did need to be taken, and that's what we're doing. But what we're also doing is investing in the houses that Senator Roberts and his colleagues in the Liberal, National and most of all the Greens party want to keep blocking. If you want more housing, there's a really simple thing you can do. It's to vote with Labor for more housing rather than always oppose it.
Thank you, Minister.